Have you seen runners up and down your timeline posing in their scrubs or maybe telling a story of how their day went at work and wondered what is it like for them working during this pandemic? Let's talk runners working the front lines during COVID-19. I love this theme song. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Runway Podcast. I am your host, Kim. If this is your first time listening, welcome to the show. If you are a return listener, welcome back. I appreciate you. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to the show so that you get notified first each and every time I upload a new episode of the podcast. On today's show, I am chatting with 3 different medical professionals in 3 different states to get their account of what it's like working on the front lines during COVID-19 and being a runner as well. So I really think that you will enjoy this show and get a different perspective from different medical professionals in their different fields and just get an idea of what they have been going through during this trying time. First up, we have Tangie. Tangie is a native of Los Angeles, California, and she currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia. She is a registered nurse, and she is almost finished with her studies to become a women's health nurse practitioner. So let's see what Tangie has to say about working the front lines during COVID-19. Okay, everyone, I want to introduce you to our guest on the show. This is Tangie. Welcome to the show, Tangie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Hot, but well.
I know. I was in Atlanta a couple weeks ago and whew, super hot.
It's so hot. The humidity, though, I think is the worst.
Mm-hmm. The humidity makes it far, far worse. Well, I gave away where you're from, but tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you located? We already said that, but you can say it again.
Okay. I'm originally from Los Angeles and currently living in Atlanta. Definitely a difference between Los Angeles and Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I am a registered nurse, and I am currently finishing my degree to become a women's health nurse practitioner.
Wow. So how long have you been in Atlanta?
I've been in Atlanta for about 17 years.
Oh, so a long time.
A long time, but I miss LA every day.
So what made you make the move from LA to Atlanta? Because that's a big difference. That's like going from a city to Atlanta's a smaller city, but it's a huge difference.
Definitely. So my husband and I were both in the military and we traveled and did some other things. And so he's from the South and it kind of just made sense for us to stay in this area. I always say I can afford to live here. So we're here.
I'm sure it's certainly more cost effective to be living in Atlanta. So how long have you been running?
So I've been running since 2014. I started, it sort of was like a gift to myself to start running. I was a year into my fitness journey and my gift was to do a 5K. And when I started running, when I started training for it, I fell in love with the concept of running. Mm-hmm. I have to say it like that.
So how did you start out? Were you a member of any running groups down in Atlanta? Did you run on your own?
I ran on my own, but I had a sister-in-law who was in another state. And so we decided we were going to run this together. And I had some other friends too. But none of us were really runners per se. But we just all said, okay, we're going to do this 5K, we're going to, it's going to be a big deal for us. And it really was a big deal at the time. And I didn't join any groups because I was always too intimidated, because I always thought you had to be, a certain pace, so you had to have all this, that, and the other. And I just felt like my goal was just to cross that finish line. So I was like, I'm just gonna get here and do what I can.
So do you have any run goals going forward? Like I know we all start with a 5K and then we move on and then we always branch out into something else. So what are you looking forward to into running moving forward?
So as far as running, next year I'll be 50. And my goal is to do a full.
You look good for 50, girl.
Thank you, girl. So I started training for a full. I was going to do one in January of 2016, and I broke my ankle in the fall of 2015. And I had run a couple of halves and, was training up to that. And when I broke my ankle, it really shifted the trajectory of my goals, why I wanted to do the full, why, it just had me reevaluate my whole life, right? So then I got back, I ran a couple of halves since then, but it's always in the back of my mind that I just want to do my one and done. Just to say it, and I was like, it'd be cool if I can do it when I turn 50. It'd be kind of a great milestone, and it just be done, I don't know, but we'll see.
So do you have like a goal race in mind, like something that's on your wish list that you want to do for your first marathon?
Well, I was going to do Disney because I figured if I was going to suffer that long, it had to be fun. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm a little gun shy, and then, with COVID, it's just difficult to make any real plans now. So, but my goal will be Disney, and we'll see.
Well, Disney is a first good marathon because it's like a fun run. People, they dress up in their costumes and, you can just have a good time. And so I think that's a good one for your first marathon when we get back to racing.
Okay. Yes. And I definitely that because that's definitely the perk of racing. People say about running. It's like, I don't like to run. I was like, well, I don't really either like that, but I enjoy everything else that running does.
I'm the same way. Like I like to run because it keeps me in shape, but like I have to drag myself out there to run. But I like the social aspect of running, meeting new people, traveling, things like that. So I think there are a lot of other factors that make us love running other than the actual act of running itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to get into today's topic, which is runners working on the front lines during COVID. So you mentioned that you're a registered nurse. Without getting into where you're working, but what do you do as a registered nurse?
Okay. So I work.
You can say where you work if you want, but you don't have to.
No. But so I work on a unit where I take care of pregnant women. And this is before they deliver, so hopefully they don't deliver for me, but if they do, whatever. But anyway, I take care of pregnant women who were diagnosed with COVID. And so that is a very unique, and it's a huge population of women. So, yes, absolutely.
And that's crazy because they don't talk about that on the news, like pregnant women with COVID. We don't hear anything about that. So yeah, I'd like to delve more into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's a unique because I'm concerned about mom and for baby. So it's very stressful and very, I think all of us that are working during this time in healthcare can attest that it's very challenging because this is all new. That's why it's called the novel virus. It's all new. And so there are really no full treatment protocols for it. So we're just trying stuff, sort of.
So before COVID happened, were you still in like the same department or did they switch you over? How does that work?
So I was still in the same department. I've always taken care of what was considered high-risk pregnant women. So these are women who have high risk for their health or their baby's health. But when COVID hit, we switched over, part of our unit switched over to taking care of these women who were diagnosed. So in addition to most of the time, well, it's kind of happening half of the time, they have additional factors like what they would have had before, like diabetes, high blood pressure, or something like that, and COVID. or they're just diagnosed with COVID and either they are pregnant or they just recently had their baby.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is it like now in Atlanta? Because I know you guys are seeing like an uptick in cases compared to like March, April, May in New York. We were like, our cases were super high, but we're like on the downswing now. But how are your hospitals adapting to the uptick in cases of COVID right now?
So we are really definitely at capacity on my unit in particular. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to not admit the less severe cases. So they're asking if you're not too symptomatic. I just say it like that because you can be still symptomatic and stay home. I send home symptomatic patients. But if you're not too symptomatic, they're saying stay home because we don't really have the capacity. I mean, we don't have the resources, we don't have the staff to really take care of people unless they're really sick. And that's unfortunate. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times because women that are pregnant, they have a compromised immune system anyway, then that kind of puts them in that category. So my unit in particular, we've seen a lot of particular uprising cases as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So what's a day in your life look like working? Like what are your hours?
So I work 7 a to 7 p, or actually 7:30 p.m. If I'm coming in and they've also increased our patient ratio. So whereas we start off with just one patient, now we're up to 3 patients with COVID. And that might not sound like a lot, but it takes us about 10 minutes to put on all our gear to get into the room. So if you're doing that, with 3 different patients and all the different things that they have going on, that is a lot. And so we have a little camaraderie now. We get our suits on, we get everything all geared up. And we try to we try to go in and do all the things at one time so that we're not constantly exposed back and forth, And I try to really communicate with my patients and build connections with them because they don't get visitors. Mm-hmm. Like we're their only contact. So I try to build a rapport with them, and I try to also express to them that because of the virus, I'm not going to be in there a lot. So we need to take care of everything right now. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in the room about 4 to 5 times during a day, on and off. And I think one of the biggest concerns is making sure that I'm properly what they call it doffing. I'm properly taking off my equipment so that I limit exposure to myself as well as passing it on to my other patients or coworkers. Mm-hmm. So it's very stressful. By the time it's over, I am completely empty, exhausted. Mm-hmm. As you can imagine.
Yeah. Now I don't know, I don't talk about this because I don't really share a lot about my kids on social media, but at the beginning of March, my son had a scare with his breathing and I had to take him to the hospital. And this was like right at the beginning of COVID. So, I know just walking in there as a civilian, like I was a little on edge, scared of, catching the disease or my son catching the disease. So how is it for you walking into the hospital on a daily basis? Like, what do you do when you get in? Do you have to put all the gear on? Are you wearing the N95 mask all day? How is it for you? What are you feeling when you're in the hospital?
So I'll say 2 things. The first thing I'll say is that I actually feel safer in the hospital than I do in the general public.
Really?
Yes, and the reason I say that is because before we get in, we are getting pre-screened. So we're getting our temperature, we're getting masks, we're getting hand sanitizer before we even hit the door. So that's something they do right at the door. When we get on our unit, when we are working with COVID patients, we are wearing N95 mask as well as protective gear, my hair, shoe covers, and different things like that. So for me, I feel like there's a layer of protection there that I don't have when I go to Walmart, Mm-hmm. And also too, everyone there understands we have the same mission, and that is to one, take care of our patients, but is also not to get sick ourselves. Whereas when you're in the general public, people have all these ideas about what's going on with COVID. So they don't always have that same intention,
Yeah.
But it's a lot. It is a lot. You really have to become another person to really fully step into that role and give the care that they deserve, and still take care of yourself. And that's why exercise is so important, because when I walk away from there, I need a way to decompress, you know?
Now, speaking of exercising, you work 12-hour days. How many days a week do you work?
I work 2 days. I work weekends.
Okay, so you work weekends. So when are you fitting your runs in?
They, you know, in Atlanta, it has to be super early because it's already 100 degrees at 7 a.m. But generally, I probably, realistically right now, might get to run 2 days a week. I can still go to the gym, but because I have to get up so early, and because I am exhausted, and because I'm in grad school, I just have to do what I can when I can. And so sometimes it means a run on a treadmill as well. But sometimes I just feel like I just need to get out there. I need the endorphin release. I need the sweat of it. I need the hardness of it. You know, I need to do all of that to get it all out as a way to, just get it all out.
Yeah. So is there anything that you want to tell runners, regarding staying healthy during COVID, getting our exercise in, any tips that you can give us to, try to stay active during this trying time?
Absolutely. We know that exercise is a big endorphin releaser. It helps us with our brain, our dopamine. I think that we don't acknowledge the fact that we're all moving through a trauma collectively. We all are affected in different ways, but this is a huge trauma. So exercise is a great way to allow one to feel better, but allow also to boost your immune system, to keep your immune system up. I think that, for many of us, this is going on far longer than we anticipated. And so in March, we were Netflix and chilling, but now we in July. So now we need we need to get out. We need to be moving, because we need to get, we need to be able to shift mentally that we're probably in this for the long haul. So exercise is a great way to do that. Also to keep your immune system boosted, to keep you feeling better, because when we do come on the other side of this, because we will, my goal is to be better. I have to give myself grace during that time, because, you just, sometimes you are just going to have some cupcakes, but we have to realize that we are going to come on the other side of this, and I would like to be better. And so exercise is a great way to feel like you're doing something you can control, even if you're not able to go to the gym. Just do something to help yourself mentally cope through this season.
Words to live by, people. But Tangie, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I always see you on Instagram and your cute scrubs and, just looking all good on the hospital floor. But it's nice to hear your story, because we see the pictures, but we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So it's nice to get a peek into what you're dealing with on a daily basis. And I want to thank you for your service, because I know it's hard doing this. It's hard on you, hard on your family. So a huge thank you to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Keep going, girl. I'm always inspired.
Of course. And wait till y'all see this video, because you would not believe that Tangie is going on 50 years old, man. Dude, that good black does not crack.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Tangie.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Next up, we have Nedu. Nedu is a native New Yorker from Queens, New York, and he has Nigerian roots. He is a nurse who works primarily with geriatric and pediatric patients, and we are also both members of Adidas Runners New York City. He's family. So let's hear what Nedu has to say about working the front lines during COVID-19.
Okay, everyone, I want to welcome to the show Nedu. Hi, hello. Nedu. How are you?
I'm good. A little tired, but that's life.
Tiredness is to be expected of us.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you originally from?
So born and raised in Queens, lived there all my life. And my family's from Nigeria. For all who don't know, it's in Africa.
I thought you were born in Nigeria for some reason.
Oh, no, no. If I was born there, you would hear the deep, thick accent. I wouldn't have hair like this.
So now you have a head full of locks. Is that traditional of Nigerian men, or is that your Americanized side?
Definitely Americanized. One day it just happened. My hair tends to grow pretty quick, so one day I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it. Then I kept growing it. Then I had an afro, and braids didn't look right on me, so I was like, you know what, let me do twists. And then I got more compliments as my hair was getting longer, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna dread it. So majority like it dreaded. The traditional Nigerians do not. Mm-hmm. Like when I go to events, like there's very few of them that be like, oh, your hair is nice and long and healthy. Then there are others like, when are you cutting it? I was like, I'll cut it when you stop asking me.
Right. So how long have you been running?
Oh, I lost count. I started running from like first grade kindergarten. It started off just racing other kids. And, you know, I became known as like the fastest kid in my elementary school. Then in junior high school, I didn't have track or field there, but I kept doing that. I kept racing other kids just to see where I was at. Came to realize I was pretty fast. So then in high school, did track and field and cross country. And it was a rude awakening because I was like, oh, I'm not the fastest person. Mm-hmm. I was up there, but I was like, I'm not the fastest person in school.
I think we all go in thinking we're fast, and then we get on the team and they're like, whoa. Yeah. I'm not that fast after all. Go ahead.
Oh, after high school, I didn't run in college because I was more focused on work and school. And then after college, while I was in college, you know, watching the New York City Marathon, I was just, no, one day I want to run it. It was only until after college I decided to do long distance running.
Okay, so what type of frontline work are you in?
I'm a nurse. I do geriatric and I do pediatric.
Okay, and are you like in a hospital setting or where you work? You have to say where you're working, but
yeah. Occasionally I work in a school setting, but lately it's been nursing home / hospitals. Where I'm at is in between.
Mm-hmm. So you've been working the whole time during COVID?
Yes, I have. That's why I need a vacation, but there's nowhere to go exactly, unless I do.
So our topic today is runners working on the front line during COVID. So how was it for you, like in the beginning of the pandemic, like when New York was, oh, by the way, Nedu mentioned he's from Queens. That's a city, one of the boroughs in New York City. So some people don't know that. You got to let people know, you know, we have listeners all over the place, but yes, New York City. So how was it like at the beginning of the pandemic when New York's numbers were like super high?
So before my job even knew what this was, we had patients coming in, you know, we had patients who were fairly healthy and everything. And just one after another, whatever the reason, they came down with something. They were sent to the hospital. They came back and they were like in the worst shape I've ever seen them. So there were patients who've been on the floor for probably like on long-term floors for probably like 10 plus years. They got this and it wiped them out overnight.
Wow.
So there have been some patients I grew close with who I always come and visit, crack jokes with, and yeah, they didn't make it.
So since you were dealing with the older patients, did it spread faster through people that are older?
I definitely noticed that, and mainly, obviously, the people who had respiratory issues. That's where I really originally noticed it. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't have respiratory issues, they came back with respiratory issues.
So they went to the hospital and then they came back and they were even sicker.
Yeah, their O2 saturation levels were low. So the average, your O2 saturation should be between 95 and 100, and they would come back at like 90. and that's on oxygen. So they were struggling to get their breath.
So how are they like even treating patients? Because there's like no set medication for this. So what is like the protocol for treating patients?
You know, I've been to different facilities, and each facility has their different set of protocols. They obviously run a bunch of labs. They're quarantined for 2 to 4 weeks, give or take, on the situation. And they are put on a strict like antibiotic, most of them IV antibiotic regimen. And it's been working. You know, there are some patients who actually don't need the antibiotic therapy. They're just, you know, they're asymptomatic, so they're just there wondering like, why am I here?
Yeah.
So that after the 2 or 3 weeks have gone, then they're retested.
So like 2 to 3 weeks is like the period of sickness, because I see some people, they've had it for like even longer than that, and there's just like no explanation as to why some people are sick for 2 weeks, why some people are sick for 8 weeks.
I wish I knew. The doctors don't even know. They're going along with the process. It's a process. They're figuring it out. We're all figuring it out day by day. But they obviously come onto something because more patients have been going home, fairly healthy. The only thing is, staff get sick now. So while the amount of patients are decreasing, sometimes we notice the amount of staff is increasing.
So since New York, we're like, I guess we're holding steady or kind of on the downtick. So what is it? Are you seeing like less people getting sick right now where you are, or how are the numbers looking?
In the facilities I've been, they're almost at 0. There's probably 1 or 2, but we have noticed that staff has been testing more positive.
Really?
So, yeah.
Now, I've been reading that in New York in particular, younger people are, testing positive because, they're out hanging out and doing their thing. So, like, what is the age of the staff that you work with? Is it a wide range, or are the staff more on the younger side?
Fairly about early mid-20s to, I can't guess the women's age, but let's just say 50s, give or take that range.
So they might have been hanging out a little bit.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure if this happened during the winter time, the numbers wouldn't be so high.
Oh, yeah. So what has it been like for you? Like, has your life completely changed when COVID hit? Or like, what hours do you work?
Lately I've been working 6 to 2, sometimes 3 to 11, sometimes it could be 6 to 11. It varies depending on how much I want to work, but that's pretty much my schedule. So I try to enjoy my days off. Let's just leave it at that.
So your schedule is all over the place. So when do you fit your runs in?
Sometimes after work. Like, as soon as I get off from work, my routine, as soon as I come off from work, is head home. Before I hit the shower, I change right at the door, put on my running clothes, and I go for a run. Mentally, I feel like it works to clear my lungs of whatever I might have taken in or sweat, anything, just to get whatever toxins out of my body. And, this whole time I've never tested positive. I've been working my behind off.
So how are you like required to get tested like during a certain amount of time? Every time a certain amount of time goes by, or how does that work?
Yeah, originally we were being tested twice a week, and now it's once a week. So it's not being fun tested, so I'm pretty happy. But... Wait,
so you were getting the Q-tip up your nose twice a week?
Oh yeah. And if I work in multiple facilities, I actually have to get tested there, or I have to bring the results saying I'm negative to them. So do they do like rapid tests, or is it like the testing where you have to wait? It's fairly rapid, 1 to 2 days. Sometimes you get it right on the spot. But, lately they've been saying sometimes you get a false negative, false positive. So I don't know how that works personally.
So do you have any like interesting stories to tell of something that happened during this COVID period that you want to share with the audience?
Any interesting stories?
I mean, like, people want to, like, I want to know, like, how did you do it? Like, all of these, like, we're still in it. We're not, like, in the thick of it like we were, but we're still, like, deep in it. And, you know, it's happening still all around us. So, like, how did you cope and adapt to the new normal?
Honestly, running has been my thing lately. So I find the more I work, the more I run, help clear my mind. It's been my go-to for everything. If not that, cooking. But
Wait, you cook?
I love to eat, so I have to learn how to cook.
I don't see any cooking videos on Instagram.
Oh,
Where the cooking videos?
No. I used to post them, but then I had to stop because I had people saying, "What am I getting? Food? What is the recipe?" I was like, no, I have to stop that. I have to create a separate page for something like that.
That could be a new avenue for you because people like to eat, and I like to watch cooking shows and videos. So, listen, I think you should take that up.
It's something when I'm not working so much, maybe I could do that.
So, what advice would you give to runners? This is a running podcast. So what advice would you give to runners to try to keep active and stay, you know, fit and in shape during this time?
Don't let the whole COVID thing cloud your thoughts. You know, it's every year we go through something. Every couple of years we go through some type of virus, bacteria, whatever it might be, and we get through it. Just, you know, follow the guidelines that they set. Don't overthink it, because I find that those who overthink are the ones who get sick. That's my word of it for everyone out there.
Good advice. Advice I'll follow. So I want to thank Nedu for being on the show and sharing his perspective of working during COVID on the front line. So tell everyone where they can find you on your socials.
I'm on IG. You can follow me at Nedu77, and I'm on Facebook at Chinedu, Chinedu, last name Ogueri.
I never knew how to pronounce your first name.
Oh, okay. Oh, nobody does. Oh, not nobody. Barely anybody does.
I'm like, is it Chinedu?
Everybody listening. Everybody listening.
Let them know.
It's Chinedu.
Chinedu. Well, you know what? I want you to put it on Facebook in parentheses.
Oh, it's there.
It is?
It's there. That means you haven't been looking.
But you know what? I don't spend so much time on Facebook anymore. Like, I just Okay, so I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes and below so everyone can follow you and, you know, get to know Nedu. And I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're my first guest in the car.
You know what? I'm always working, so I feel like my car is my second home because I'm always on the road.
Mm-hmm. That's dope. All right. Thanks, Nedu.
Thank you for having me.
Last up on the show, we have Brenda. Brenda is located in Dallas, Texas. She is a registered nurse as well, and she works the ER at the Dallas VA hospital. So she gives us a little bit of a different perspective of the healthcare side of working with veterans. So let's hear what Brenda has to say about working the front lines during COVID-19. Okay, everyone, I want to welcome Brenda to the show. How are you, Brenda?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and where do you currently reside?
Okay, so I was originally born in Houston. I live in Dallas. I've lived in Dallas majority, like my whole life. Pretty much my whole life.
Really?
Yeah.
Sounds like me. I've been in New York my whole life.
Yeah.
And people always say, like, why did you never leave? I'm like, it's home. I don't know why I never left. I'm just here. I love it.
Right.
So how long have you been running?
So I just made 7 years on 4th of July.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's good. So what got you into the sport?
Truthfully, I was in nursing school. I was getting my RN, and I was in a mental health class, and one of the things that they were talking about was like running really helps your mental health and all this other stuff. And then in the class, they start going over like all the different like mental health diagnoses, and so you start thinking you got all of them.
So,
and
go ahead.
And so I took the class, and I was just like, oh, we'll try this running thing. And I had started seeing Black Girls Run, had started coming up around that time. So I was like, okay, cool, let me give it a try. And I went out there.
So you started with the run group with BGR?
I did start with BGR at first, yeah.
Are you still running with them?
I do not run with them right now.
Everyone says that now. It's like...
I know. And it's not for any, it's just, I was an ambassador for a run coordinator for several years. I moved away from a group, and in the running community, you start meeting other people, you start moving in different directions, and then it's just like, before you know it, you're like, traveling all these different places and going different places running. So.
Yeah, I know. Like BGR was the start for a lot of us, and it was like a good foundation, but eventually we branch off and we discover new people and start doing new things. But yeah, I'll always be forever grateful to BGR because it laid the foundation for my running journey and so many of us Black women in America. So tell us a little bit about the work that you do, because today's topic is runners who are working the front lines during COVID-19. So what type of work do you do right now?
So I'm a registered nurse. I work at the Dallas VA. And at first I was a day surgery nurse. I was the nurse that got you prepped and ready for your surgery. You went and had your surgery, and then I recovered you from your surgery, gave you discharge instructions and medicine, and sent you home. But with, of course, COVID-19, all elective surgeries and major surgeries were canceled. A lot of people don't know this, but when you work for the government, the VA, they have the right to redirect you wherever they want to. So I got detailed to the emergency room. But now for the past 4 months, I've been working in the ER because they're not really doing elective surgeries. We're just kind of doing what's needed to be done. And so they detailed about 90% of the day surgery staff to different places. So the ER or on COVID unit floors.
So you said you work at the VA, that's the Veterans Hospital?
Yes.
So everyone that comes through there is veterans, or it's for everyone?
Yes, it's just for veterans only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that you're an RN, which is a registered nurse.
Correct.
So for people that don't know, is there a difference between a registered nurse and another type of nurse?
Okay, so you have, so you have a licensed vocational nurse, which is a nurse, and I was a licensed vocational nurse. It's not as much schooling. It doesn't take away from the knowledge base. There's certain things that a licensed vocational nurse cannot do, but she's still a nurse. So there you have the licensed vocational nurse, which is the LVN, and some cities it's called LPN.
I see that a lot.
So we have those that work at the Veterans Affairs Hospital. You have the registered nurse, which has either an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree behind her name. Then you also have a nurse practitioner who is also a registered nurse that has a little bit more schooling and can diagnose and also, take care of you alongside with your doctor. And then you have a nurse doctor, which is a PhD nurse. And so that she's got her doctorate in nursing, and so she knows all there is to be about it.
So there's a lot of variety of nurses out there. I always see the letters behind the name and don't quite know, what it stands for or what, exactly that is. So thank you for breaking that down for me and probably for other people that are listening to this. So how has it been for you working during COVID? Because I know like right now, you're in Houston? Dallas. And Texas, I don't know if it's as a whole or different cities, your numbers have been going up lately. But in March, were the numbers lower there, like at the beginning of COVID?
So for us, it's different at the VA because we only cater to veterans. Whereas everybody in all the other hospitals in the private sector were seeing like steady numbers, we were not seeing high numbers. So we stayed pretty, and our veterans stayed away. So when I say they were not coming to the ER, they were practicing social distancing. They were doing everything that they were supposed to do. So the only people who came to the emergency room were people who were truly sick. Now, we did see COVID patients, but we didn't see nearly as many as the private sector did. Now, when they opened the city back up in May, that's when it started getting a little bit more dicey. So our numbers actually doubled. So whereas the city was going crazy, our numbers started increasing higher as well.
So are you seeing more civilians coming in, or is it still veterans right now?
It's still veterans. We do have the ability to open up to civilians if the city gets overran. We did just deploy out some nurses that are part of the disaster team to go to San Antonio because we're taking San Antonio's veterans because they're so full.
Wow. So is there a big population of veterans in the state?
Yeah, so they're saying that North Texas by 2025 will have the most veteran population in the United States because everybody's moving south because cost of living is so much cheaper.
Wow. So is, I always see like big houses and, everything's bigger in Texas. So you wouldn't think that the cost of living was less there.
It is. So I've been to New York a couple of times in California. So what y'all would pay for, we would pay probably like 2 to 3 times less. So for us, like a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, 2-car garage, and a pretty decent yard, you can get that for $200,000 or $300,000.
Shoot, in New York, you're lucky to get that for $400,000. It's probably
right, and that's not even like a really great builder. That's just like a custom, cookie cutter without any frill.
Mm-hmm. So how is your like home life? Because I know you got married a couple years ago. I saw your fantastic wedding pictures. You had your African garb, and they were fabulous, girls. So how is your home life with your like husband and you being on the front line?
Well, it's definitely changed, of course. My husband has 2 children, and I don't have any of my own, so we kind of have to social distance. He is a property investor, so his business never stopped either because housing was still considered essential. So he still continued to work, and I also continued to work. So what we try to do is my parents and my family live down here, and of course his children live down here too. So we kind of just self-isolate. We do a lot of FaceTime with family. I go and see my folks maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. I have older parents, so I kind of have to socially distance from them too because I do take care of active COVID patients. But yeah.
So how are you fitting your running in? Because I know I see you posing in your little short shorts on Instagram like every day. I'm like, does this girl work?
I do work. So the beautiful thing about, and it's a blessing in disguise, my detail, I used to have to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning, which meant I had to wake up like at 4:30, 5 o'clock to get dressed and work. And it's too dark for me to run at that time. So I would run in the evening, which is very difficult to run in the evening after you've been on your feet for 12 hours a day and then run in the hot blazing sun. So my detail moved me to 11:30 in the morning to midnight. So I run in the morning with my husband.
Oh, and it's hot in Texas. I know, but how are you, like, I know it's already hot first thing in the morning there, right?
Right. So 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30, it's the coolest it's gonna be, which is about 80 degrees.
Well,
so
I guess that's cool.
It's hot, it's still like 80 degrees is better than like 106.
That's true. So what's the feel like in Texas? Are you guys like going out because your restaurants have opened back? Everything's open, right?
Right, everything is open. I think they shut the bars down because they deemed the bars were the cause of the COVID spread and all that other stuff. So,
yeah, because I went, I did like a bike ride last week through like Long Island City, which is right across the water from Manhattan. And I was shocked at the number of people that were outside. Like it was a regular old day. So is that what it's like in Texas right now too?
Yes. Yes.
Because New York was like a ghost town. Like you can walk through a Times Square and there was nobody outside.
Yes.
And now like I'm seeing an uptick of people here. So I'm like, are our cases gonna start going back up, or is it gonna hold steady? But you guys are like the opposite. You had lower cases and you're open and your cases are going back up. So are you like going out, or what are you doing? No.
Like I only go out for the essentials, and honestly, I'm lucky. My husband works from home, so he loves to go grocery shopping, so I let him do his thing. So if anything, I probably just like I go get my nails done. I still do that.
You do?
I do that, but the girl who does my nails has her own booth. She has her own little suite. And she like does her temperature checks. You have to set an appointment. You can't bring anybody with you. But she was doing that before COVID. Nail salon where they got like 40 chairs and people are in there. So no, she's always in a private suite.
Mm-hmm. See, that's like the one thing that I'm scared. Like I stopped going to nail salons like a year and a half ago though. But that's like the one thing that I would be scared to do is like to get a mani-pedi at this time.
Yeah, I just do my hands because that's the one thing people see.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
So is there any advice that you can give to runners to like try to stay safe and healthy during this time from a nurse's perspective?
I would just tell people it's super important to continue working out, to continue your runs, your bike rides. I mean, from a mental standpoint, whatever is going on in your family, your job life, that kind of stuff, because it does help you. Those endorphins do help. I would say continue to do that. If you can find trails that are not as crowded, it's really hard because everybody's running now, everybody's bike riding now. But you're outside, so they say it's a little bit safer because the wind's blowing and circulating, so it's a little bit better than being on the inside. I don't run with the mask. I just run.
Me, the girl.
With the mask.
You can, like, you'll suffocate. I don't know how.
Okay.
I think the people that are posing with the mask, they're just posing for Instagram.
I think you put that on after.
Yeah. Because there's like, even when I'm going to the grocery store, my whole face is like sweating. Like, I don't know how people are running with masks, but yeah, that's definitely good advice. Anything else you wanted to share?
And just take it serious. I mean, a lot of the patients that we're getting in, we're seeing an uptick in asymptomatic patients, meaning they're coming into the ER for something completely different than COVID-19. Then we are having to admit you into the hospital. So say you have I had a patient come in who, he was at work and he worked construction. He had his construction outfit on. He came in, he was like, yeah, my heart is racing. We did an EKG. We found that he had an abnormal heart rhythm that he hadn't had before. It was a Saturday. We're like, okay, we're going to have to admit you for the weekend and do a workup, a cardio workup. And we're having to swab you for COVID on admission because we need to know if we're placing you on a COVID floor or on a non-COVID floor. So he was like, oh, okay, it's no problem. I'm talking about a healthy guy. Swabbed him. He was positive for COVID. So that totally changes what we have to do for him at this point. So respiratory issues, or will he have respiratory issues in the next couple of days?
Now, the asymptomatic people, are you seeing that more in like younger people, or is it coming up in older people as well? We
consider younger people 20 to 50.
Oh.
So that's considered young and health-wise. So because, I mean, I'm 41, so I don't want to say that I'm old, but I'm not 20.
Yeah. Like young, I think in the 20s and like maybe early 30s.
Yeah, no, so we're probably, not really 20-year-olds because we don't have a lot of 20-year-old veterans. So we are probably seeing 30 to 50-year-olds that are thinking, okay, I'm younger, I'm healthy, I don't have high blood pressure, I don't have diabetes, I don't have what my mom and grandparents have. So I'm good. But I try to tell people, you may not have high blood pressure right now, but it lives in your genes because your mom or dad may have it. Exactly. So just because you don't present with it doesn't mean it isn't lurking around the corner.
So when you come to work, like, do they test the employees on a regular basis at your hospital?
They're not testing us for COVID. We come in, we got to go through the temperature checks. We have to, go through an array of different things. Then we come in, they give us, we have PPE, we have, we have to wear N95 at all times. We have to wear a mask on top of the N95. We have to wear a face shield on top of that. And then if you go into an active COVID room, you got to make sure you put the gown on, tie your hair up.
So it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And that's interesting because I spoke with another fella. He's actually in New York and he has to get tested frequently, but he goes to different facilities. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're testing. He said, swab up the nose.
Not fun.
Yeah, no, not fun at all. But yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to share with our audience regarding, staying safe during COVID?
I would just say, I'm just like everybody else. I wish running season wasn't canceled.
I know.
But we just have to adjust. It is so heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm, it is.
But we just have to adjust. And we're going to have to learn how to live with this thing for a little bit of time. And I know everybody wants it to be over like yesterday. But just the way that it is, I would say we're probably going to be in it for a little bit longer. So just be mindful of that, stay safe, and then just continue to socially distance.
Very good advice. So I want to thank Brenda for being on the Runway podcast. It was a pleasure having you. And I want to also thank you for your service and all that you are doing to keep the veterans safe and, everyone else, because that, working in the medical field is a hard job. And I take my hat off to all of you that are doing it because you're putting your life on the line essentially as well. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
So let our audience know your social so they can follow you on.
Okay, so you can check me out on Facebook. I am Brenda Ellis, or you can check me out on Instagram. I am bougie_bay, runbay on Instagram.
I will put that down below because I don't even remember how to spell it.
Hold on, let me think here.
Bougie Runway. I will put that down below so you guys can just click and follow her on Instagram. So again, thank you again, Brenda, for being on the Runway podcast.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Those were our 3 healthcare professionals. They all happen to be nurses, but all located in different states. So we had Georgia, we had New York, and we had Texas. Texas is currently a hotspot for COVID. Atlanta is on the uprise, and New York is like holding steady right now. So yeah, so I think it's great to hear a different perspective from all 3 of them on what life has been like during COVID. And I just want to thank all of them for their service. I know it is not easy to get up every day and be on the front lines and fight for people that you don't even know. So yeah, Tangie, Nedu, and Brenda, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for appearing on the Runway podcast. I appreciate you. So that is all for today's show. I want to thank you all for listening, and make sure you subscribe to the show and come back next week. I'll have more interesting and fun content to chat with you about. So I will chat with you guys then. Later.